For 2 years, I thought I was managing my anxiety. I was journaling, I was meditating, I was doing the breathing exercises. I had a whole routine, a whole system, and every single morning, I woke up more anxious than the day before. I didn't understand it. I was doing everything right, everything the internet told me to do, and yet my mind wouldn't stop. The overthinking, the replaying of conversations, the scanning for what could go wrong next. It took me a long time to realize the uncomfortable truth. I wasn't managing my anxiety, I was feeding it. And the worst part, I didn't even know I was doing it because the beliefs that were keeping me anxious, they felt like facts. They felt like just who I was. This video is about those beliefs, where they came from, what they were costing me, and how slowly, without any dramatic breakthrough, I started to let them go. If your mind is loud right now, I think this one is for you. I want to take you back to a specific version of me, 24 years old, working a job that looked impressive on the outside and felt completely hollow on the inside. I was what people call a high-functioning anxious person, which just means I was very good at hiding it. I met deadlines, I showed up, I smiled in meetings, but underneath all of that, my nervous system was basically running a disaster simulation constantly. I'd wake up at 2 a.m. and lie there, completely still, replaying a conversation from 3 days ago, looking for the moment I said the wrong thing, looking for what it meant about me, what it said about me as a person. I thought this was just how my brain worked. I genuinely believed that. I thought some people were just worriers, and I was one of them. It felt as fixed and permanent as my eye color. And here's what I didn't know then. That belief, that I'm just an anxious person belief, that was the first thing feeding it. When you believe anxiety is who you are instead of something you're doing, you stop looking for the door. You just redecorate the room. Psychologists call this an anxious identity. It's when anxiety stops being something you experience and becomes something you are. And once that shift happens, every anxious thought feels like confirmation of a truth rather than a signal worth examining. I wasn't having anxious thoughts, I was being an anxious person, and that distinction, as small as it sounds, was keeping me completely stuck. Ask yourself something for a moment. When anxiety shows up for you, do you say, "I feel anxious," or "I am anxious"? It's a small word. It changes everything. So here I was, doing all the things. Journaling every morning, meditating for 10 minutes, deep breathing when I felt the panic rising. I was genuinely trying, but without realizing it, my tools had a hidden function I didn't sign up for. Every time I felt anxious and immediately reached for my journal, I was sending a message to my nervous system. The message was, "This feeling is dangerous and needs to be fixed right now." Every time I counted my breaths to calm down, same message. Every time I Googled my symptoms at midnight to make sure I wasn't dying, same message. I was trying to escape the feeling, and every attempt to escape taught my brain that the feeling was worth escaping from. There's a concept in psychology called anxiety sensitivity. It's not just being anxious, it's being afraid of anxiety itself, being afraid of the racing heart, the tight chest, the spiraling thoughts. And when you treat those sensations as emergencies, you amplify them. I had built an entire lifestyle around avoiding the feeling of anxiety, and in doing so, I had made it the most powerful thing in my world. This is what feeding it looked like for me. Not dramatic, not obvious, just 1,000 small daily choices that all said the same thing. I can't handle this. This is too much. Make it stop. And I want to be honest with you, I'm not saying those tools are bad. Journaling helps me still, breathing is real, but I was using them as escape routes instead of as awareness tools. That's a completely different thing. The journal was supposed to help me see my thoughts clearly. Instead, I was using it to dump the thoughts out so I didn't have to look at them. Spot the difference? About 8 months into this spiral, I started reading everything I could about anxiety. Not to fix it, I'd given given up on fixing it, but just to understand it, because understanding felt like the only thing I had left. And one afternoon, I came across something that stopped me completely. It was a simple idea. The idea that underneath most anxiety, under the overthinking, under the what ifs, under the worst case scenarios, there's a core belief, a story you've been telling yourself for so long it doesn't feel like a story anymore. It just feels like the truth. For me, that belief was this: if I stop worrying, something bad will happen. Worrying keeps me safe. I know how that sounds. Logically, I knew worrying didn't prevent anything. I knew that. But somewhere much deeper than logic, I had a deal going with my anxiety. I'd let it run, and in return, it felt like protection. My anxiety wasn't a malfunction. It thought it was doing me a favor. When I found that belief, really found it, looked at it clearly, something shifted. Not dramatically, not overnight, but the relationship started to change because I stopped fighting the anxiety and started getting curious about it. What does your anxiety think it's protecting you from? I'm not being rhetorical. That's a real question worth sitting with, because when you understand what your anxiety believes it's doing for you, you can start having an honest conversation with it instead of a war. And wars are exhausting. I was exhausted. Carl Jung wrote that what you resist persists. I'd spent 2 years resisting. It was time to try something else. I want to be careful with this part because the internet loves a transformation story, and this wasn't that. There was no morning where I woke up free. Unlearning is quiet work. It's slow, and it looks boring from the outside. But here's what it looked like for me practically. The first thing I did was change one rule. Instead of make the anxiety stop, the new rule was get curious before doing anything. So when the spiral started, when the chest got tight, and the thoughts got loud, instead of immediately grabbing my journal or breathing through it, I would just notice it, name it. This is anxiety. My heart is racing. My thoughts are looping. I notice that. That's it. That was the first step. You can't think your way out of anxiety, but you can change your relationship to it, one honest observation at a time. The second thing I did was stop asking, how do I stop feeling anxious, and start asking, what is this anxiety pointing at? Because anxiety is not random noise. It's information, usually information about something you care about deeply, or something that feels out of your control, or something where your sense of safety feels threatened. When I started asking, what is this about, instead of how do I make this stop, I started learning things about myself I had been running from for years. I learned that a lot of my anxiety was about identity, about not being sure who I was outside of my productivity, about being terrified that if I slowed down, there would be nothing underneath worth finding. That's not an anxiety problem. That's an identity question, and no amount of breathing exercises answers an identity question. The third thing, and this one is simple but not easy, was letting the feeling be there without immediately acting on it. Just sitting with the discomfort, not fighting it, not feeding it, just being in the same room as it. The first few times, it was awful. My whole body wanted to run, but each time I stayed, each time I let the wave come without trying to stop it, I collected evidence. Evidence that I could handle it. Evidence that it would pass. Evidence that I was not, in fact, going to fall apart. That evidence is what slowly rebuilt my nervous system's sense of safety. I'm not going to tell you anxiety goes away completely. Mine hasn't. But the relationship is different now. It used to run the room. Now it sits in the corner, and I can hear it without dropping everything. And the beliefs that were feeding it, the I'm just an anxious person, the worry keeps me safe, the I can't handle this feeling, those didn't disappear overnight. I didn't have a breakthrough. I just stopped watering them. Slowly, they got quieter, and I got louder. If you're somewhere I was, exhausted from trying to manage something that keeps growing, I just want to offer you one question. Not an answer, just a question to sit with tonight. What if your anxiety isn't a problem to be solved, but a part of you that's been trying to say something you haven't been ready to hear? You don't have to fix it today. You just have to get a little more curious about it than you were yesterday. That's enough. That's a real start.